Replitters, and welcome to Replit 101. The Gwyl Dewi happies to our Welsh viewers. Happy St. David's Day. That is the reason I'm wearing this very fetching hat tonight, because it is the patron saint of Wales's day. Well, anyway, I'll take it off because it's a little small. But welcome to Replit 101. This is where we spend an hour every 2 weeks to try and solve your coding problems, or at least we get Ghostwriter chat and debugger to try and help us a little bit too, which is very, very nice nowadays. Before we start, I'm going to kick off by reminding everyone that the most important thing is that we get and try and solve problems tonight. So if you have any questions, even if you think they're silly, please pop them in the chat and we prioritize our live chat. Otherwise, we'll start going through posts to ask.replit.com, which is our forum where you can go and ask questions and get help from a lot of helpful people. And we will be trying to fix those tonight. So pop your questions in the chat. I've already got a couple to start with, and we will get going. But as we start every episode of Replit 101, let's look at the updates that have been made to Replit since last time I talked to you guys. And hopefully I haven't messed up my keying, because that looked a bit weird then, but there we go. The most important thing that's happened to Replit in the last 2 weeks is that we now have a new way of paying for Ghostwriter, because a lot of people were frustrated with having to get cycles and refill them and all that sort of stuff. Well, actually now we've got a Hacker Pro plan, and even better, look at the animation on this. Oh my goodness me. This is live animation, by the way. I've spent hours of my life just wiggling my mouse over this. But now for $20 a month, you can get all the stuff in Hacker, as well as more storage, more egress, faster workspace, SSH, Ghostwriter AI, and Ghostwriter chat, which is one simple payment to make it much easier for you if you are interested in doing things that way. The other thing, of course, is extensions. Now, extensions can happen in any REPL. So let's bring up a Python REPL just to show you. And extensions are a big part of most IDEs. I'm sure if you use VS Code or IntelliJ or things like that, you'll find that you've got loads and loads of extensions there to help you work. Things like code formatters and stuff like that. Well, we are bringing extensions to Replit. And if you are an explorer, you can turn on extensions, which appear in any REPL, and we can go to the extension store. And we've got some example ones at the minute whilst it's in beta. And we can bring in our JSON editor, for instance, and install it. And we support free and paid for extensions, which is quite nice. And if I open it up now, I can find the JSON file and edit it through my JSON editor, which is nice. I don't have a JSON file in here. Maybe we'll try a hex editor. Now, a hex editor allows you to edit the binary bytes in a file. So let's bring any old file in. Let's have a look. There we go. And you can see there that I can edit the actual binary bytes in that file, which is quite cool. With those two example extensions, we, of course, are asking people that are interested in building extensions for Replit to get on board. You can suggest an idea, you can get in contact with us, and we'll get you on board the beta for building extensions. And of course, build your favorite, build something that's going to be useful to you. Extensions is going to be a big deal when we get all those extensions rolling in and when people start using them day to day. So they're the two big things coming to Replit since the last time I talked to you. But in fact, there's been an even bigger thing happen. One of my REPLs got to trending. Unbelievable. I know. It's almost like I work for the place, but very cool. And it's the first REPL I've ever had up on trending, so I'm quite proud of it. But it's a very, very simple thing, and it might be useful to all of you, because of what it is, it's a very, very simple REPL, and I've wrapped up a few things together. Basically, it allows you to turn any media file, videos or audio, into a text transcript simply by sticking your files in the input folder and clicking run. That'll do its business. I'm just going to say yes to that because it's working on a file that's already there. And I've got now an output file there with a transcript from that text file. That is just an example of combining multiple things together in a nice, easy package. What it's really doing is it's using FFmpeg to convert any file into a 16-bit WAV file that can be pushed through OpenAI's Whisper service. And it's running a local version of that as well. So there's no information going out of this REPL at all. It's all things that you control. So you can now convert any media file to text in an instant. And of course, if running a bit slow, do boost your REPL, because that's how you get faster stuff. But that was my excitement for the week, is having a trending REPL. We've also got a fun Amjad Mazad chatbot, which has been trained on all of Amjad's stuff. So that's our CEO. And Ironclad built that. Speaking of Ironclad, tomorrow he'll be live with me about the same time for our new live stream, Old Coder New Tricks, where he's going to be trying to teach me some new tricks, which hopefully should be a bit of fun. Tune in tomorrow about the same time on this YouTube channel to see more of that. But I've talked enough. Let's solve some problems. And the first problem, I believe, is, I've got millions of comments on my transcription, but I did get invited, there we go, to a day 17 REPL. So now this is a question Danny's popped up in the chat, and we'll get rid of my little video on the tutorial. And Danny said that he's stuck on day 17 of 100 days of code. It says continues not properly in the loop. Would you be able to look at what I wrote? And of course, and Danny very kindly invited us into his REPL so that we can work on that at the same time. Let's start by quickly reminding ourselves what this one was about. I think I vaguely remember. So we're doing rock, paper, scissors. We're using a loop to repeat the game, keep scores. We're using break and exit when a player wins 3, and we're using continue to restart the round. So hopefully we should be all right. Let's have a quick look at the code. Now, I think straight away, Danny, I can see what the problem is, but let's go through the motions and let's see what we get. So we're running that and we're getting continue not properly in loop. Now, let's see what Ghostwriter Chat comes up with, because Ghostwriter Debugger is pretty good. So it's saying the errors on line 40. We need to verify that continue is used properly. Now, the problem we've got here on line 40 is that continue works very similarly to break and exit. Well, break, I suppose. Continue and break are two very, very similar constructs in Python. Break basically says, look, abandon this loop, exit it, don't worry, just carry on with whatever you were doing before, go on to the next line of code. And continue is a little bit different. Continue says, oh, stop this loop, but go back to the start. Take all your variables and all your changes and go back to the start. Don't worry about the rest of the code. So the big issue you've got here, Danny, is that at the bottom here, this continue isn't in the loop. So you're sort of saying, go back to the top of the loop. And you've put the continue in a place where it's going, what loop? Where? So let's see if we can put it, and it should just be indentation. It should just be indenting the code to get it in the loop. Well, the main issue is we don't have a loop at all. So let's do that. So first job, use a loop to repeat the game multiple times. What sort of loop would we use for this? In the chat, if I don't know how many times I'm going to be repeating something, what kind of loop would work best for this? And you've got two real options in Python. You've got a while loop or a for loop. Anybody want to pop it in the chat for me? Go on, see if you can do it. Is it a while loop or a for loop we need to add to this game? Is anyone going to offer up an answer? I am aware there's a little bit of a delay on this, so I'm asking questions. I'll give up on it. QWERTY's in straight away saying a while loop. Nice one, QWERTY. You're right. And in fact, we're going to be a little bit lazy and use a while true loop, which means that this is an infinite loop we've caused. Now, to get everything in the loop, I'm just going to highlight everything below, and I'm going to click Tab, and that moves all of the code there into the loop. And you'll notice there, Danny, that straight away that error on continue is gone. So we haven't got any code that won't execute now. But the question is, does it do what it's supposed to do? So if I click play, there we go. We've got rock, paper, scissors. This is player 1. So we'll do rock versus paper. Didn't see a result there. So, oh, I'm not doing it in capitals. I'm sorry. Right. Rock versus paper. Interesting. What I'm going to do just very quickly is I'm going to comment this out so we can see what's actually happening to the result. Danny says, I can't believe I forgot to write the loop, but the whole lesson was about loops. It happens, Danny. It happens. Don't worry. I've debugged code for people before, and the entire point of the code was to loop, and they just hadn't put it in. It gets worse when you learn about subroutines because they feel like loops. Right. So I've taken that off just so we can see what's going in. So I'm putting in R and I'm putting in S here. I'm not getting anything. So something's going wrong here in between this part. So let's go through and have a look. If player 1 equals player 2 draw, so if I put R and R, do I get draw? I do. So there, that part of the code is executing correctly. So our else here, let's go in. If player 1 is R, player 2 is, it probably is executing. We're just not showing anything on the screen. Again, this is a common thing when you're building programs. It's good to have a bit of feedback, a bit of text feedback on the screen to the user, because even when you are building programs that are just for yourself or just for, I just want to solve this, if you don't say on the screen what you're doing, it's very hard to debug. Now, what we could do, and I'm not sure if this is part of, I can't remember when we brought the debugger in, but we can open the sidebar and bring the debugger in down here. Now, what the debugger is it's just a way of keeping track of certain variables and lines of code. So if I were to run it here and I were to skip through the steps, it would actually show me all the variables so I could see what was happening as we were going. That may be for a future lesson though, but really, really useful there. So I reckon if I just keep going R and P, I should be getting to the right level. Player 2 won the game, so it's getting there, and it's doing that. The only thing to remember is, let's have a look. What are we starting player 2 wins off? Starting them off as 0. So let's go through the scenario, okay? First run of the game, somebody wins. Second run of the game, somebody wins. Third run of the game, somebody wins. And then we should exit the game there. So that should work pretty well, which it seems to be doing. Exit is exiting, but what we want is just very simply is to put that continue in there. Now, one of the things as well that people get frustrated by is what the exit command does in a REPL. If you do the exit command in a normal terminal window or you do it in a local IDE, you're not going to see this message. Now, we print that message out because when you're working in something in a browser and it stops, you don't really get any notifications or anything. So we push that message to the screen just to say the REPL died and nobody pressed the stop button. And that's fine, but a lot of people get annoyed by seeing that message. Now, the way you've constructed this program, the entire thing now is in a loop. If we replace these exits with break, it should have the same effect. Because if it breaks out of the loop, it's going to end up down here on after line 42 where there's no code. So I'm going to do P and R, P and R, P and R. There we go. Perfect. Danny, that was a great bit of code there. The only thing you'd really missed, honestly, the only thing you'd really missed was the loop. Aside from that, everything was in the right place. Continue would have worked fine where it was, but that's really what we were trying to get to with it. Don't forget, with all of these, if you go to hints, there's some information. But on the next page as well. Oh, did we not do it for that one? Oh, I can't believe we haven't done we didn't do it for that one. Normally we put solutions in. Did we not put solutions in for this one? Well, oh no, there we go, right at the end, solution. So you can go and grab the solution that we built. I think after about day 20, we started doing video solutions as well. So the further you get through it, if you do get stuck and you're just there scratching your head, you can come to Replit 101 every 2 weeks and ask questions. Of course you can. You can go to the Ask forum and ask questions. But we've recorded solutions for the vast majority of these videos. And there's no shame in watching the video. The video will give you ideas and you might just be halfway through and go, oh, of course, that's what I was missing. But the video is better than just reading the code of the solution because it's literally a video of me going through and solving the problem. So you'll see me make mistakes. You'll see my thinking. I'll talk you through how I'm thinking about how things work and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. Day 17 solved for you, Danny. I think you can take the credit for that one because you were there apart from the loop. So well done with that. Okay. Now, I want to jump over to this very, very quickly because we do these live streams every 2 weeks. And, you know, I think it's the most wholesome hour of my working fortnight. I love doing Replit 101 because I'm here with you guys. You're talking to me in the comments and you're doing loads and loads of good stuff. But the question that we have and the question that we need answered regularly is this helpful? Does this live stream format work? Is Replit 101 a useful thing to you? We have something like 500 asynchronous viewers every 2 weeks. And, you know, only about 10, 20 people will turn up to the live streams to go in the chat. So is this working, or would you prefer a different format for this kind of thing? To do that, we've got a survey that I'd love you guys to fill in, especially the end bit where we've got comments or suggestions about how to improve our content like this. And I'll pop the link in the chat, but I'll pop it on the screen as well. If you are watching asynchronously, we'd love it if you could go and fill it in. If you're watching live, I'd love it if you could go and fill it in and let us know how you feel about these live streams, because if they're not working for you, we'll do something different. But if you are enjoying them and they are meaningful and you want them tweaked or you want them improved, let us know. That is really helpful for us to understand how we can best direct our content creation efforts to meet the needs of the community. So please go fill in that form if you can over the next 2 weeks, and we'll take a read of that and a view and see how we get on with it. I did see a comment then pop up from Robert. Robert says he did that for the Tkinter stuff. The position stuff is really funky. Yeah. And don't forget, Robert, in the 100 Days of Code, the Tkinter stuff was the stuff that I said at the beginning. If you're not into this, don't worry about it, because the sad part about Tkinter, and you know, let's bring up a Tkinter example just to show you, is that UI stuff is interesting. UI stuff's really, really good. But if you're working in a commercial platform, you know, iOS, Android, even if you're building stuff for Windows, your GUI builder is often drag and drop, and it's often really, really good. And you can do it programmatically, and Swift UI is very good for that. But there is no good drag and drop GUI builder for Tkinter. So everything has to be hard coded. And just look at the amount of nonsense there just for a simple little window like this without any interactions on the buttons. And yes, we all know it looks a bit 1990s. So apologies for everyone that's done the Tkinter part of the course. Mr. Crinnell says, I love these, just wish the times work out better for me. Well, you know, if you've got a better time in mind, pop it in the comments, please, because you know, I'm British. This is it's like 5 to 11 for me in the evening, so it's not an amazing time for me either. But if there's a better time that works for most people who want to watch this content, then we'll do a better time. You know, I don't mind staying up a bit later or starting a bit earlier. Please do fill out the form, because I would love to know what you guys think, and I would love to get as many people for the live audience as we can. It's always a good event when we have the live audience, and when we've done it, when it overlapped with holidays and things like that, and we've had the live audience really swell in numbers, that's been absolutely fantastic, and it's been a lot of fun to be a part of. Okay, so I can't see any more questions in the live, so we're going to start going through the Ask forums. And let's zoom in a little bit. Oh, by the way, I haven't gone through the Discord this week because we've given the Discord over to the community, which I think is fantastic. It's a great thing. The what used to be the official Replit Discord server is now the unofficial Discord server, but has been handed over to the mods and the community members to run for themselves. So it gives you a lot more flexibility and freedom in what you can do with that. And of course, it lets it grow in a more organic way, because that server has been very much a place where people have made friendships and engaged in all that sort of social stuff. And we have the ability now to let you run it and let you build it up the way you want. So I've not gone to the Discord this week just to let it all sort of settle down and bed in, but we'll come back to it. We definitely will. So here's the first question that I wanted to look at this week. And this is a really, really common thing because people do this all the time. The question is very, very simple. Can't install the OS library. Now, I know at least 2 of you in the chat have done 100 days of code, or you're doing 100 days of code. So the OS library will be familiar to you, and you might already be going, I know how to answer this one. I can get straight in there and do that because they're trying to do os.system clear. And the user said they've tried to use pip to install it, but it couldn't find it. And the solution by coder Elijah is fine, and it solves the problem. But what the user seems to be trying to do is just use OS clear in their command. Now, interestingly, I think that the problem here is that they're not running it on Replit, which is funny for a forum that is solving problems on Replit. And I'll tell you why, because if we take their exact code, let's see if we can put that in a REPL and get it running. So let's create a Python REPL. We wait for it to boot. There we go. We pop that in there, bit of a space between OS and time. That could be a copy and pasting error. And let's run it. And you'll see here that that's working perfectly fine. So it works on Replit. This is where we find out that the user is actually not using Replit at all for what he's trying to do. And you can sort of see that from the screenshots here, because that is not a nicely rendered output in a console here in our color scheme, is it? But, you know, I give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe they're using themes. No. That's pure black. That's a Windows command line terminal, isn't it? Now, the reason this doesn't work is because what OS actually does is it talks to the operating system, and it literally just sends a message as if it was typing its own commands in the terminal. So it's actually really powerful because os.system, you can just send commands like rm to remove files or ls to list files, and you can pull that data back in if you want to. It's really, really powerful a way of talking to the operating system. We're sort of hijacking that just to clear the screen. Now, the interesting part is that Windows doesn't use the same commands as Linux-based systems do. So clear will work in Replit because it runs on Linux machines. It'll work in Mac OS. It'll run on Linux, run in Ubuntu. It'll even work on Android. Where it won't work is on Windows, because Microsoft decided that the command to clear the screen wasn't going to be the word clear. It was going to be CLS. So there we go. I think people are taking the mickey out of me a little bit. You must have a million unnamed REPLs. QWERTY, I definitely do. I've got an embarrassing folder of unnamed REPLs because I do this all the time. I just want a sample of code. I want something to work. I make a REPL, hit create, and just stick some code in there and go for it. Robert's laughing at the same thing. Yes, my list of unnamed REPLs is embarrassing. But I'm going to have to say this, not as embarrassing as when I was a teacher. Because when I was a teacher, I'd make 10, 12 unnamed REPLs every single lesson just to show examples of things and show how things worked. Multiply that by a day, multiply that by a week, and multiply that by 20 years. Not that I used Replit for all those 20 years. It didn't exist, but certainly for the last chunk of it. And my teaching account has more embarrassing numbers of unnamed REPLs. So we won't look in that folder. But as I was saying, the issue here is that clear doesn't work. So I'm going to jump on here and I'm going to, can I not get in here? I'm going to reply. The error looks like, error seems to be because you're trying to run the code on Windows, where the command is different. Is this good TV? Is this entertaining? Hear me speak out what I'm typing in Windows. Clear becomes CLS. There we go. I feel like I've done my duty now and helped the poor Windows user get on with it. It's funny, actually. I brought this up as an example because you'd be surprised the amount of people that are doing 100 days of code and trying to do the work in a Windows terminal or on an offline editor. And yeah, we designed the course to work on Replit because it's a consistent environment, very, very straightforward to get everything up and running. So there we go. Oh, Ibrima's in the chat. Hello. Yes, Ibrim, if you've got any questions, please pop them in the live chat. We do prioritize them and say hello to Hamoda there. If you've got questions, guys, and you're joining the live stream, please pop them in the live chat. We endeavor to solve any programming problems you can, even if, like this user, they were using Windows. Oh, maybe you feel dirty just doing that question then. Right, here we go. So now I wanted to bring this one up because I thought the way that that this user described their problem was totally wonderful. It's they may have filled in the bug report form here to get this, but it's a very, 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 very complete and detailed bug report. So Ian, who's our sort of teacher liaison in charge of the forums dude, he's brilliant. He's a teacher from Scotland. He said that your code works as intended, but let's have a look what the problem is. And I think we might see, I'm going to fork this code so we can actually edit it. Now, interestingly, that ends up as an unnamed REPL as well. I didn't bother changing the name of it. That's gone into my unnamed REPLs. And we let it run. Oh, poor QWERTY. As a gamer, I use Windows. I know, yeah, I know, QWERTY. I've got I did have a dual boot set up. I've now got a Windows server just to satisfy that itch. But oh, bless them. Bless Microsoft. They're trying. Right. So let's have a look at this code. Oh, sorry, I lost my X button. There we go. So it looks good, but as soon as we start typing, you'll see nothing's going on in the console. And we have just covered this exact problem in Danny's code that we were looking at a few minutes ago. And it's that first line. This is a line that I stuck in, I think maybe like day 5's 100 days of code question. And I remember in the code writing, just don't worry about that. That just hides what people are typing in, because it's really hard to do a 2-player game of rock, paper, scissors if you can see what the other person's typing in. So what this does is it overrides input, the default input command in Python, with getPass from the getPass library. And the getPass library is just a way of making passwords not appear, which is sort of what you want. I'm just using that really instead of the input so the users don't see it. But when you're trying to do something like taking player 1 and player 2, but there is an easy fix. If we take it out, you'll see that I can now do player 1 and player 2, but it's still going to show me the rock, paper, scissors. So once I've asked player 2 for their name, let's bring that in and override input. You'll see there player 1, player 2, and the program already thinks I'm a cheater because I haven't actually typed anything in yet, because, oh, that's the moves. I thought that was the names. That's the moves. So me trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist there. Yeah, that's working as intended then. But I wanted to show that because it's very easy sometimes to just come up with an idea and you go, what is going on here? A lot of the time, it is working as intended. Okay, so we've got some questions in the chat now that will pop up. Okay, Hamado says, what do I do when my Replit doesn't run 24/7? So Hamado, I'm going to have to, can't speak tonight. I'm going to have to ask you to give a bit more detail on that one, because if you use always on for your REPL, so you've turned that on and you're paying for always on, it should keep your REPL running. Now, if your REPL crashes, or it uses all the memory, or even in some cases, if we need to move your REPL to a different virtual machine, it will turn off for a second or two, but the point of always on is it turns it back on. So we need a bit more detail in your question here, because one, are you using always on? Two, if you are using always on, what is the application you're trying to write? And three, when the run button's hit, do you have to interact with it to get it to actually start working? So if you could answer those questions, that'd be great. That'd help us out with that. But by default, a REPL doesn't stay always on. It'll stay working whilst you're working on the code. But if you move away from that window for any period of time, eventually it'll go to sleep, and that's to save resources. That's how we're able to offer a free plan, basically, because the REPLs are not always running in the background. Now, there are a few ways of pinging that REPL to stay always on, which are not officially supported. And that's worth me saying, they're not officially supported. If you Google it, you will find a bunch of stuff. The only supported way that is guaranteed to work and that will be supported by our support team is always on, which is a few cycles a month, a few cycles a day to get that working. I think it's like 20 cycles a day to get always on now, or you could go for the hacker plan if you wanted to. It's worth having if you need something to run consistently, because it's the supported way. Okay, QWERTY's saying, I remember doing 100 days of code and was so confused at first. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I tried so hard to make it as clear as I possibly could. Ibrahim has given us some code in the chat. Now, this is going to be very difficult for us to get this into a way that we can see it all, because it's just mushed it all together. I tell you what I'd do, Ibrahim, if you wouldn't mind, please. If you could either email me here with a link to your REPL, or invite me to your REPL with this account, and we'll be able to launch your code and edit it and work on it live. Okay, so if you go to invite in the top corner and pop that in as the account, Ibrahim, we'll have a look at your code live. So whilst we're waiting for that, let's take a look at this next question. CSS is not working properly while using Python in the Flask framework. Okay, let's have a little look at the website. Here we go, we'll fork it. And don't forget, when you view, do you like the new cover pages, by the way? I think they're pretty epic. There's a lot more information you can get quickly with that one. Okay, so there's an MD file. There's the main.py file. And the user's using a template renderer. Now, for those of you that done 100 days of code, we didn't use this. This is like a built-in way of doing templates. We didn't use it because the syntax is different to an F string. I didn't want to confuse things, so we just reused some skills. But that's the better way to do a template in Flask, definitely. So let's have a look at what happens when we run it. Okay, it seems to be picking up the CSS. So we've got a static page with an image in. Okay, and in templates, let's have a look. Well, the CSS is inline as well, which is interesting. So inline CSS means that it's been hard-coded into the page. It's not a separate file. So that should mean all of this should be working well. Oh, QWERTY's brought up an interesting thing here. A lot of people dislike the new UI. Is that for the cover page? I think it's really, really nice. What is it about it that's not working for you then? Because that's worth knowing. Let's know. Let's know in the comments what's not working for you about the new cover page. I think it's really nice. I think it's really a nice way of displaying lots more information. But you know, I never had any real love for the old cover page. I thought it was a little bit clunky. I think the new one is nice and a bit fresher. But tell us what you don't like about it. Let's have a look. So stuff is, you know, this is loading. All the CSS is loading on that one. So what was the user's problem? Let's have a look. Let's get my, oh, don't look at the amount of tabs I've got here, because that'll scare you. Right. Right. I think the issue might be this. Let's have a look, see if this works. So let's describe H1. Let's make the color red for H1 and refresh. Oh, it updates. I think whatever was happening here to this user they solved. One of the things that is often a problem with the way Flask works is that if you hard code the page contents here, for instance, in 100 Days of Code, sometimes we just returned like some text. That is only rerun when you stop and rerun the REPL. So sometimes if you're having issues with CSS and things like that, the easiest thing to do in Flask is stop it and rerun it. But that problem seems to have fixed itself. So QWERTY's coming back to the UI for the cover page, and John, let's go back to that and have a look at it whilst we're talking about it, because worth having a look at, I think. So this is the new UI for a cover page. Again, the way it used to work, of course, is that this was much smaller. It was sort of modal inside the web page. And I'm not sure, QWERTY, maybe you can let me know. I tell you what, let's go and have a look at mine, because I've been looking at my trending cover page, and you can sort of see the difference. I built the image size based on the old one. So yeah, I get. Please let me know. I'm not sure if this has been rolled out to everyone or if this is just rolled out to explorers at the moment, because I've got my Explorer turned on. I always keep it turned on. So let me know if that's just for explorers, because we could turn it off and we can have a look at what the old one was like. But so QWERTY says, a lot of people said you can't see the comments. I just like the fact that you can't even see your own fork count. So, oh, that is true. That is true. So we used to have the number of forks at the top, didn't we? That might be something that's just worth adding, that's worth feeding back. Because oh dear, sorry. The fork count was an important number, and and distinctly different to runs up here. We do have REPL Analytics now, which I don't think specifically tells you the forks, but tells you information about geography and stuff like that. But yeah, I can see what that means, you not seeing the forks. Comments, though, they're just a scroll down. I don't find that much different from where they used to be. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just taste and opinion. A lot of this isn't it? It's like I liked where they were because I was in the workflow of doing it. I always found the style of the old ones to be a little, just a bit like lots of wasted space. This feels to me like a better use of the real estate. Oh, sorry, QWERTY said you can't see them very well. Not that you can't see them at all. And don't like how the nav bar covers the REPL. So this stuff at the top, presumably here. That nav bar is always there, though, isn't it? It's consistent. Look, I think they're worthwhile criticisms. I think the important thing is to point them in the right direction. And I would have thought the fork number would be something that should be a feature request, really, because that's something that's lost and probably we want back. And if it's on for explorers, which QWERTY does say it is, if it's on for explorers, then the reason it's on for explorers is because they want feedback on how it's working and if it's nice. And if you do have opinions and you do have things that you've lost, and I can understand with the comments, I can completely understand that if you're looking at your own, you want to see those comments. Yeah, maybe there are ways that we can do it. Maybe there are things they can change to make those more visible to you. But feed them back as much as you can. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the help button, to go to get help, and then do a feature request. There we go. And that will allow you to make a post on the Ask forum where our support engineers and our devs can see all the feedback that's coming back about the changes we're making. And that's particularly important if something is there. Oh, the hamburger, not the nav bar. Yeah. Again, I think it's taste, isn't it? So that doesn't bother me at all. And this screen is the screen that I'm sharing is 1080. It's my live streaming screen. The main screen I use is much higher resolution. So maybe it's just that the real estate is bigger. But again, feedback. That's the point of the Explorer program. If you turn on Explorer features, it's so that you can try things early and you can feedback. If you've got opinions, feedback, because changes can be made. And I'm with you on the fork count there. I think that fork count would be nice to see, wouldn't it? Well, I think there's some slight pride about me that my repel's been run nearly 2,000 times now, which is remarkable for something that I've built and shared in the community with my unique set of skills. Okay, did we get the invite? Let's have a look. Abrima, we did get your invite. Fantastic. So let's go and have a look. So let's go back to Abrima's comment. So Abrima's saying, if I execute this, it will show me an unwanted execution. Okay, well, let's have a look and let's see what happens when we run it. So name of exam, let's just do Replit 101. Maximum possible score. Let's keep things simple. Let's do it out of 100. I got, let's have a look. What do I want to get? I'd like to get an A. So let's say I got 87. Okay. Okay, so it's not working because it's saying that I got an A+. Let's see if we can debug this and see what's going on. Now you'll notice, first of all, that Ghostwriter debugger hasn't popped up to help me. And that's because it hasn't crashed. I could go into Ghostwriter debugger and ask it questions if I wanted to, but let's do this the old-fashioned way. Let's have a look at the actual code on here. So line 7 is saying, if your score is less than or equal to 100, or your score is greater than or equal to 90. Now, the issue here, I believe, is probably the OR. Because the way the OR works is if either of those parts is correct, it'll just do this code. So let's think about what I typed in. I typed in 87 out of 100, which is 87%. So it's saying, is my score less than or equal to 100? Which it is. So it'll always print this out. Actually, this bit, I don't think is needed. I start off by saying if the score's over 90. On the elif, and this is an interesting way of doing it. I can't remember what we call this, but this is basically saying this part and this part is correct. This might work okay. Let's run it again and let's do 87. Just do some nonsense there. It's out of 100, 87. We're looking for an A. Okay, we got a B2 here. So let's change this around a little bit so it's only using one argument, because if you think about the way this if statement is structured, if we start at the top and we say, right, is it more than 90? If it's not more than 90, we can go to the next highest value. Is it more than 85? So if we do this again now, there you go, that's working correctly now because it's gone through the ifs and the elses and it's gone, is it over 90? No. Is it over 85? Oh, it is. Great. So it's somewhere between those two numbers, which means that we're getting that. This means the code is much simpler because all we're really dealing with is the upper bound or the lower bound of the grade each time, which is much, much nicer. And there's no chance of it going wrong because it's much more of a simpler program. Let's try like 76 and see if the rest of this syntax is working. Again, there's ORs in there. So the ORs means if either side is correct, it'll do that bit of code. I reckon if I go for, say, a 40 here, which should be what, an E8? Yeah. So all you've got to do now, Ibrima, is if you have a look at each of these lines, yeah, each of these lines is working the same way now. It's saying, is this true or is this true? Now, because it was 40 here, immediately it went, well, it is less than 85. So it moves on. The way this if is structured, it would have to be less than 85 to get past this if statement. So you don't actually need that part on any of them. If you go through now and remove that first part of the OR on every single statement, you'll find that it executes perfectly. And this is a perfect case of just putting too much in, trying to overthink it. The best program is a simple and understandable program. And the first mistakes people make when they're learning to code is trying to put too much in there. And that's exactly what's happened here, Bremer. But you got the right idea. It's just you need to be very careful of how that or works. The or is literally, does this side work or does this side work? And if it does, and I think you were reading it differently there. Now, and might have worked. If we think about how and might have worked here, if the score is less than 75 and it's greater than or equal to 70, well, that would have worked because both sides of those would need to be correct for it to work there. So if you change all these ors to ands, it would probably work just as well. So that's the difference between an or and an and, logical separators there, which are quite tricky to get right. And honestly, I've debugged programs that have taken hours, and the issue was an or in the wrong place. Hopefully, Abrima, that helps. I have managed to close my questions down now, haven't I? Fantastic job, David. Let's have a look. Oh, no, I haven't. Phew. There we go. Right. Here's one that I've seen a couple of times, which is a frustrating one. Let me fork this one and show you, because this may be the last one we cover tonight because time is ticking away from us. Actually, no, we've got a good 10 minutes. We can cover another one. Mr. Neil, brilliant. Great that it's good revision for your National 5 candidates. Hopefully, that's what we try and do with these, is to solve problems and try and be a bit interesting as well. Mr. Crinnell says he's trip up on the same thing. It's just the logical idea of what those mean and the way you read it in English as well is really difficult. One of the most common problems people face with if statements is just reading them as if you were a human, and the computer needs the full comparison, the logical operator, the full comparison, that, it needs different syntax the way you read it as a person, but sometimes it just works in some cases, and it's a bit frustrating to try and debug, but there we go. Now, this is one of my favorite problems I've encountered for a while, because it is one of the frustrations that people have with Replit, but it's actually really, really easy to fix. And if I run this, it'll say, I can't run anything. And the reason for that is that this user has accidentally renamed his main file to man. So if we rename it as main.py, it'll run. It would run if there weren't errors in the code, but there's no CSV file in there by the look of it to read, which is why it's crashing here. And does Ghostwriter Debugger know that? Yeah, it does. Look at that. This is one of my favorite things. This actually solved the problem for me. For 100 days of code, we were testing selling certificates. So if you got to day 50, if you got to day 100, we were selling certificates. I think we still are, if you're interested. Drop me an email if you are interested. Sorry, I've had my username up on the screen for ages now, so I feel like a bit of a muppet there. But do drop me an email if you're interested in getting a certificate to say you've done those things. I think we're selling the 100 days one for $35 and the 50-day mark for $50. But I built the REPL that allows you to do that and stores a certificate and connects it up to LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. But I was having problems. I rejigged it to support a 50-day certificate and a 100-day certificate, and it was just erroring, and the error message was just nonsense. It was referring to 15 other files that I hadn't written, and it was sort of just like, I don't really know what the problem is here. I don't know what's happening. And Ghostwriter Debugger just went, that file doesn't exist. And I went, oh, I didn't upload the PDF of the certificate. Yeah, that is a massive problem. Abrima says, thank you. And the command works. Fantastic. Just be careful with those ands and ors, Abrima. They are tricky to get used to. So yeah, the issue here is that the CSV file doesn't exist. But, the overall problem, though, was that the user renamed the files. And the user is trying to use Replit in a way that it isn't really designed for. Like, you guys were making fun of me earlier on for having, a million unnamed REPLs. And that's because when you want to start a new file, you start a new REPL. That's the mental model you've got to keep in your head, is that Instead of just adding a new file on the left-hand side, you make a new REPL every time you want a new piece of code. There are exceptions to that, of course. If you're building a program with multiple bits of code that should all be running at the same time or being accessed from different files, yeah, do build those files in there. But you should be calling those files from the main.py program. But if you do insist on doing it this way, then there is a way around it. What you need to do is show your hidden files, and you need to go in your .replit file. Now, your .replit file controls exactly how all this stuff works, so how the entire REPL works. And you'll see there, the first part here is defining what it will do when you click the run button. So this is the command that it's actually sending. So just like you'd be in the terminal, if I was in the shell and I did Python 3, then Pascal triangle, you'll see it would run that code. And you'll see that, again, there's an error in that code, so it's not running. But I can use the shell if I want to and type the commands in, but we're not animals. Let's just go in and adjust this. If you change main.py to the name of the file that you actually want to run and click run, it'll run it. I've not done it with a file with a space in it before, but let's have a go. Oh, there we go. It is running it for me, and it's crashing away on the original one. There we go. So I think I might have to reload it once I've adapted the .replit file. So can I reload? There we go. Saved. Changes haven't saved. Give it a second to save the changes, which might be why it wasn't working, actually. There we go. And let's run it again. Reload the thing. And we should see, oh dear me, we should see those changes working. You can tell it's late for me tonight, can't you? QWERTY says you can change the .replit file. You can, and that should work there. And I'm not having much luck with that. So let's have a look at the .replit file. Oh, it's probably because I've left the entry point the same here, isn't it? There we go. Well, you do have to change all the references to main.py, and it will work there. Now, I think personally, the way to fix this is to change your mental model. If you are a teacher and you are asking your students to create files every single time you want to do a different exercise, don't. Get them to make a new REPL every time. It's a different mental model. It's a different way of working, but it means that they'll have executable code available to them at all times, and they won't have to remember any incantations to get it up and get it working. QWERTY says run doesn't know anything in Python 5. It's the entry point. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm glad you guys are keeping the track on me. But yeah, it's that delay causing the problem, isn't it? Yeah, sorry about that. So this is what you need to change. Let's give it an update and see if it works. I'm sure this will be okay with spaces in, but you know what file systems are like. Yeah, there we go. So it's running the Pascal triangle program now. Thank you, QWERTY, very much for having my back on that one and just updating me. So it's the entry point that's important here. Oh, of course it is, 'cause it's using all the different parts, isn't it? The run command, sorry, I'm talking to myself here a little bit. The run command is not really doing anything because we've set the interpreter. So this is a really interesting thing about the way Python works. And I could have just read the first comment, really, couldn't I, to see that. The run command doesn't actually do anything if the interpreter is set. And the interpreter is set down here to use the information from the entry point. So there we go. The .replit file for Python is actually really complicated. It's lovely. I had somebody talk me through it once. It's really, really interesting, all the different parts of it and the way it works. We did used to have a visual editor for that, which I think somebody is rebuilding, maybe as an extension, maybe as just a Replit project, but it'd be lovely to see a visual editor for that so we can make the changes there. By the way, if you're wondering what replit.nix does, these are the packages that you can bring in to add extra things to your REPL. If you're struggling for space and you need to bring in something like, I don't know, TensorFlow, there is a Nix package for that you can just bring in. And I think we can even bring in, if we wanted to, Firefox. And then if we try and run it, oh, I've obviously brought the wrong package in, but you'll see that it added the correct package for me then. But that will load and install Firefox in that REPL for me. So you can actually have a really, really nice setup. And We did a video about this about 2 weeks ago with Ryan Mulligan, who's one of our Nix legends and an engineer on the product, talking about how you can use Nix and the very basis of what Replit's built on to construct a consistent working environment for yourself. And it's really, really cool. In fact, in that video, I've shown how you can get WordPress set up through fiddling with these Nix files, which is pretty cool. And that's how we end up having loads and loads of options. QWERTY's saying maybe I can make that an extension. Yes, please, QWERTY. If you can, I would love to have that visual editor back. But with that done, that's us done for Replit 101 for another fortnight. But if you're desperate to see me, you can see me again tomorrow at the same time, because both I and Ironclad Dev will be here tomorrow at the same time for an hour, and he is going to attempt to teach this old coder a new trick, which will be React and TypeScript. So if you want to see me scratching my little bald head and wondering what all this new modern programming paradigm is about, please tune in tomorrow to see me learn something for a change, instead of just talking at you guys about all the stuff I already know. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because Ironclad is a cracking chap and very knowledgeable about TypeScript and React. And it's something that I really want to get my teeth into. I've tried to learn it a couple of times, but I think I've got some misunderstandings, a poor mental model, probably from the fact that I learned to code in, early aughts. And so my mental model of how that should work is probably a little bit old-fashioned. Also, if you are able to fill in the live stream survey for Replit 101, I'd love that. Let us know if it's working for you, what we can do to change it. Even if it's on at the right time, there's a free type comment box there for you to fill in. Especially important for all of you that watch asynchronously. We get about 10 to 20 people watching live. We get about 500 people watching asynchronously every fortnight. So if you're watching async, please fill that out and let us know what we can do to make it better for you. But with that done, that's us sorted for yet another day. There's something seriously on my Kia there, isn't it? Bringing that up every time. But thank you for tuning in, and especially thank you for everyone on the live chat. Replit 101 wouldn't be the highlight of my fortnight without you guys there to chat to me and help me out when I'm doing obviously silly things with .replit files. So thanks to everyone. Thank you for bringing your problems to the chat, and thank you for helping me solve things. Fill in the form below, please, if you can. And I shall see you next time. I have seen a question just pop up. We might have a quick look at it. Brima says, that short statement is a written code. Please help to import. You just need to stick that line as the first line in your code, Brima, and that should work. In fact, we've covered that. This is the third time we've mentioned that now on this live stream. If you roll the live stream back to the very start, I think it's one of the first things we talked about. So please wind it back, have a look, and see how it goes. For everyone, though, thank you for tuning in. Replit 101 wouldn't be what it is without you. Really appreciate the fact that you're here. And until next fortnight, if I don't see you tomorrow, bye.